the Starwood 2.0 that's been coming out. And I'm going to get a chance to get an exclusive interview with the great Byron Ballard, as you know. Has been just eating up the virtual world and has been so available and has gotten to create so much material. But here we are with her actually really honest God live. How you doing, Byron?
I am doing okay. It has been such a luscious, yummy Starwood. And part of that, of course, is that we weren't together last year. Except there was like a little virtual component because I taught some classes at Starwood, but it is not the same as being up on that stage and having people all around you, so you really are interacting with people. It's huge, huge. But it's been a delightful Starwood. The rain is a little, it's a challenge, but we're camping. That's the way that works.
Now, you had one of your classes broadcast, right?
Yes, I did a class Thursday on creating and using a fetch, which is a magical technique for finding out information, for getting material objects, as you well know, sir. And then yesterday I did the class called Honey on the Stones, and it's about sex magic. And
that one was not filmed?
No, it was supposed to be filmed, and and for those of you who know this class, hello, I almost always do this class in an open robe. And so I had a kind of a flowing robe to wear and pants because they told me, oh no, you can't be naked on video. No. I guess it's like still FCC rules maybe, I don't know. So we had a huge rainstorm ahead of time, huge. And I went up there with my little pants and my little robe, and they decided that the equipment was too wet and the potential for the wet equipment was too dangerous, so they decided they weren't going to film it after all. And as soon as he told me that, I took off my clothes. I was like, oh boy, I get to do it the way I always do it. And it was good. There were 50 plus people there, which is the largest class I've ever had at Starwood.
And they were outfitted on stage and everything else. And it's one of the things about the mysteries of a live event. Things like that do happen, where you're able to present that live piece. And I think the virtual stuff has a great way to allow people to expand. I think it's going to be something that's going to grow.
Oh, it is the way to go. And I've been talking to a lot of festival organizers and a lot of festival attendees. I've been talking to vendors. And we've been saying that the virtual world is going to open up all of festival. And it's going to be incumbent on festival organizers from here on out to have a virtual component as well as a live in-person component, because there's so many reasons people can't attend festival. They can't give up a week of their lives to do that. They have mobility issues. They have other disability issues that keep them from coming out and camping, even in an RV. There are people who it's an affordability issue for them. So they can pay less money, they can stay at home. And for presenters, it means that people can do what I did a few weeks ago. I presented at 3 festivals in one weekend, and I did it all from my living room. And what I lost in that weekend was an hour and a half here, an hour and 45 minutes here, and an hour and 15 minutes there. I did not have to fly to Washington State and spend 4 days in a campground in order to present less than 2 hours material.
So I've been really thinking about this a little bit, and I think I want to bring it up in a little bit. I want to get to some of the more pertinent things that are happening that are so exciting. But the idea of that idea that you've done a lot of virtual, but it couldn't prepare you for live events. But I want to bring that up after, and that's real thunder and lightning, or is it?
Or is it?
Did you buy the weather component for the simulation?
It's the weather app.
Yeah. I hope they'll let me buy the film, because I can see you start with the VR game. But you're gonna have a book coming out. You've always so you're a prolific writer.
I write a lot. Yeah.
And you've done some pretty amazing books.
Thank you.
The latest one, publishing.
The one that came out in February.
Yes, the publishing. You get credentials on Publishers Week magazine.
No, the one that's coming up. I've got one coming out August the 1st, which is called Seasons of a Magical Life.
Right.
And I got a wonderful review in the religion section of Publishers Weekly.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a former bookseller. Before I was a professional writer, I was a bookseller. And
Mm-hmm.
so the importance of something in Publishers Weekly, I still am kind of zzz about it.
I bet you are. That is kind of
Yeah.
that. So let's talk about, well, the book you're most known for is your Appalachian Magic books.
Yes, and I have 3 books on Appalachian folk magic,
Mm-hmm.
which is both my study and my craft.
Yep.
So I tell you more about those?
No, I want to think about this. So Magical Life is next. I want to make sure we get it in there. So Magical Life is the next one.
Seasons of Magical Life,
okay.
correct. Yeah.
Boy, I Edism today, you would just been slaughtered right there. Okay.
Well, and I have to tell you that previously I worked with small independent presses, and I picked the titles to my books. But for this book and for the book that came out in February from Llewellyn, I didn't pick the titles. The publishers picked the titles. And so sometimes I don't remember the names of the books.
All right.
So I have to stop and go. Like the one that came out from Llewellyn is called Roots, Branches, and Spirits, the Folkways and Witchery of Appalachia. But I have to stop, and my mnemonic thing to remember is Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Roots, Branches, and Spirits. And that's how I remember. So that one came out in February, and that is the 3rd of the Appalachian folk magic books. I love hearing the thunder in the distance. We may not love it when the lightning strikes right over there, but I love hearing it.
I understand that. It's great. So the Seasons of the Magical Life.
This is a book of my heart.
Okay,
And
you've said that.
Yeah, let me just give you a little bit about this book that is so deeply meaningful to me. So I have, for many, many years, identified myself as a garden variety pagan. I follow the cycle of the seasons of the agricultural year. That's what I teach. I teach that you will deepen your spirituality through actually having a relationship with the planet. And so many people, especially people who live in an urban area rather than a rural area or a suburban area, they don't, it's like, yeah, I'm kind of an earth religionist, but, you know, there's not a lot of earth around me. As though the built environment is not still part of the planet. So I wanted a book that basically would cajole people, would tease people, would lure people into a deeper relationship with the planet in order to deepen their own spirituality. So it's the book of my heart. I really wanted so much to just be able to express how, I don't want to use the word precious, but I guess I'm going to, how precious everything we have is, because the chances of losing it are so really astronomically good. And so I wrote it, and my writing process is I figure out about how many words I want to write, and I just vomit them out. It's like I just keep writing and writing and writing and writing. So I'm a person who benefits from and is appreciative of an editor, a really good editor, who will take that 60, 70, 80,000 words and help shape it into what it needs to be. And I was very fortunate with this book and with Weiser, who's the publisher for it. They gave me a team of editors. So there was it hit the first editor who threw out some extraneous crap. But by the time we got to the line edit, it really was tight. It was a tight book, and it said what I wanted to say. But now here's the other reality of being an author. So there's this book. There's the book of my heart that I love, that I've been wanting to write, itching to write for so long. They do all the editing, and then I'm thinking, yeah, but is it any good? Is that book any good? Ugh, I don't really know. And I went back and read through it, and I was like, I don't know, I'm saying anything special. And then the Publishers Weekly review came out.
So, yeah.
So I felt for a little while, oh, that was really, but now I'm at that place. It's coming out in 2 weeks, and it's like, I don't know, is it any good? I don't know. I've gotten some great endorsements.
Right.
One of my teachers and someone I admire greatly, Caitlin Matthews, gave it a wonderful endorsement.
That's good.
So Yeah.
Ultimately, it's about the market is the eventual real world judge of your book, right?
Absolutely. And I was thrilled, and that's not too big a word. I was thrilled with what happened with the Llewellyn book because it sold out at the publisher on the day it was released and didn't come back into print. And it got a second edition okayed on the day it was released. So that's a tribute to the people who wanted to read that book. And it's on at least its second printing now. I haven't talked to Llewellyn to see if there's been a third printing yet. But it's doing really well. But that's Appalachian folk magic, and that is a hot commodity right now.
Well,
It really is a hot commodity, and being a folk magician, a lot of people want to know a lot about that.
but let's be honest, you've come about this honestly. This isn't like you suddenly going from being old to this. This is you're honestly Appalachian.
Yes, this is not culturally appropriative. I got in trouble with some people in social media a few years back, some folks in California, and they were like, "We will destroy your career." And I was like, "Hey, I'm a multi-generational Appalachian subsistence farmer. What the fuck do you think you can do to me?" So yeah, they're going to send me back to the farm, I guess, where I'll grow the best tomatoes in the county.
I think so. When they hear that, people think of the idea of a bumpkin, a country folk, somebody who's less than knowledgeable, right?
Let me just address the H word. So there are words in every culture that the culture can use within the culture for each other. And we all know the big one for that is the word that none of us are going to say in public.
Right.
The word hillbilly, which I do not use in public in any real way, that can be used between two Appalachian people. So my buddy in Kentucky, we can say, "Well, I had one of those hillbilly throwdowns. You know how it is. We ate a whole lot of barbecue and we drank a whole lot of beer." That's okay, because we're speaking within the culture. If I talk to somebody from New York, New Jersey, California, Montana, and they use the word hillbilly, that's not what they mean. And I know that. And everybody in Appalachia knows that. We fight this stereotype constantly. So I don't use that word, and I encourage people who are studying Appalachian folk magic to not use that word either, because it's an insulting word and we all know what it means.
Right. And you're an amazingly educated person by the rules of society.
I am. I have a terminal degree in my field.
Right. And that's so it isn't this idea. So you went and learned, got your degrees.
Yes.
Masters, right?
I have an MFA, yeah.
Okay.
I have to tell you, I did a paper, and it's one of the things that inspired me to write about this. I was asked to present a paper at Harvard in 2008, I think, for a colloquium called Forging Folklore, because I'm a folklorist. And and in this paper, I talk about I am your worst nightmare. I'm an educated redneck. So I walk between those worlds, and you have to code switch. I've been code switching all my life. I've been code switching since in the second grade. I had a teacher from Chicago who kept correcting my speech, and started learning how the outside world wanted me to talk. Then I went on to do Shakespearean acting and Greek tragedy, very formal, high-end theater, and eliminated my accent for the most part. So I've spent the past 15 years relearning how to talk. And it's been fascinating because I hear things come out of my mouth and I think, nah, that's not the way I really used to say it. And so I hear myself sounding like somebody who's faking my accent. And it took me a good 5 years to get to the place where I could just turn it off and turn it on. And now I do a podcast called Weird Mountain Gals. And that is a riff on all those bluegrass groups that were called the something mountain boys, Clinch Mountain Boys. So we're the Weird Mountain Gals. And my partner Alicia and I sit down and we just get started. And it flows now.
Right.
So I have that accent, and then I have my, talking to city people accent. Because I know that some people can't understand me when I talk in my natural native accent. They just can't. And part of the reason is because the language is very different. But the other reason is because as soon as they hear it into their head comes uneducated.
Mm-hmm.
Possibly bad teeth, which I will own. I do have that. But all those stereotypes that have come to be held, as you said, the word bumpkin, they've been held for so long about Appalachians.
Only because that's not yet having dealt with being another one of those words that is not meant to be favorable.
No.
Right. And I wanted to just clear up, one of the things that you've done is you spent a long time learning all sorts of different ideas. But now one of the things I think that you do really, really well, and I think it's very important, is that you're starting to talk about the tower times, the idea of what is happening. You have been a vocal activist, and I think there's a lot of the people who are entering into witchcraft well beyond the confines of the community in the sense of all sorts of different ways. They're the young radical, the old feminist, and they're really angry. Some people call them angry women, some people call them powered women, but they've taken on
and
this.
They can be powered and angry women.
Right, and you've been talking with them a lot, through your Facebook and through your festivals, and through your book, the book on it, and that book is.
It's called.
Earthwork?
No, it's called Earthwork Ceremonies in Tower Time.
I want to say Earthwork Ceremonies in Towers.
And
that's an essential part about what we're facing, kind of.
Right, and I've been talking about this for more than 2 decades.
Okay.
And then seeing the omens and the signs around it, because I'm also an Appalachian omen reader. So in the late 90s, we started talking about the collapse of these top-down systems. And I'm a tarot reader. I've been reading cards since I was 12. And I named it after the tarot card, the Tower. And what I believe in my both waking visions and philosophical thought about it is that we are in one of those extraordinarily important historical liminal times where we have an option to change how the future goes. We've been in those dozens and dozens of times in human history all over the world. This shape, the top-down, what we've come to call patriarchal structure, is incredibly efficient and it's easy to maintain. And the mistake we have made again and again is that we go, oh, here's the structure, and this person on top, oh, but that person is not good. That person is a dictator, that person is evil, that person is whatever we want to wrap around how we don't like the leadership at that point. But all we need to do is replace who's on the top of the pyramid. It's all going to be okay. Well, it's not going to be okay, because the problem is the shape. The problem is not who's on top. I'm going to pause for a minute so the ice truck can go by. The problem is not who's on top, it's the shape. And if the entire thing is upheld by the people on the base of this pyramid, or sometimes people like to talk about a ladder. There's a ladder. But either way, all the people that sustain it are on the bottom and they get the least benefit for it. And because of that, then periodically we have a revolution that happened during the age of so-called enlightenment, when we got the form of government in this country that nobody else had ever seen before. And we cobbled it together from a lot of different places, including the Iroquois Confederation. But it was brand new. The idea that people could govern themselves through agents was extraordinary. Certainly Europeans had never seen that. But what's happened now is that we have another opportunity. So the towers are falling. We see that all the time. And when I first started talking about this, people were so dubious. They were like, oh, yeah, it's almost the end of the millennium. Yeah, everybody has an end times prophecy. Okay, whatever. And then the 2 towers fell in New York. And some people went, oh, And up to this very day, what was it, 3 weeks ago, the condos fell in Florida. All over my social media feed, it was like, is this part of Tower Time? Yes, it is definitely part of Tower Time. Because these systems are failing.
Right.
These top-down systems, no matter what it is, education, medicine, religion, government, they fall, they recalibrate, and then they continue to fall. So now is the time. Oh, I'm getting in my preaching voice. Hang on.
Yeah.
What is incumbent on us is to put the new systems, the new egalitarian systems in place now. In fact, we should have done it 10 years ago. Put them together now so that when it falls, we don't go, oh no, the tower has fallen. We must build it back again and put a strong person on the top to lead us. No. The problem with the leadership vacuum that we are seeing all over the world is that leadership has to be reconstructed too. Leadership can't be one charismatic or one powerful person. It cannot be that anymore. And that's why it feels like a vacuum to us, because there need to be triplets and quadruplets and however many people need to hold pieces of the power, so it's no longer power over, it is power with. And that's what we've been dreaming of for so long. And for anybody listening, if you don't know, Rion Eisler's Chalice and the Blade, it's an older book, but it lays this out so beautifully. That power over is what we've been dealing with basically for 6,000 years, maybe more. And it's time for a new thing. It's time to figure out how we have power with each other. Because there's so much work to do, and many hands really do make light work, and we all need to work together as much as we can. And that's the rub. We are individuals. And I cannot tell you how many times, up until about 4 years ago, even after my book came out, it came out in 2018, the Tower Time book, and people were still laughing like, oh yeah, Tower Time, whatever. Now, that phrase is everywhere. So if there was a conference in California, and they did a whole afternoon track on now it is Tower Time, what do we do? And people contact me all the time and go, is it okay to use the phrase Tower Time? And I go, yeah, absolutely.
Because this is more of an open message for you, not a closed message.
Absolutely wide open.
Right.
Because the circles on the ground, which is what I call creating the new systems, that's going to look different where I am than where you are. The systems may be different. They may need to be different. It's going to be different where I am in Western North Carolina than it is going to be for the Navajo Nation. They're going to need different systems, but they are going to have to develop those.
So you've used the word before of relocalization.
I talk about that a lot.
And that means?
One of the answers to where we are now globally is that we need to relocalize everything. The idea that you can go into the grocery store in January in Western North Carolina and you can buy fresh strawberries ought to be seen as an obscenity. You should not be able to have fresh strawberries. You should understand that fresh strawberries will come in June. And we have to be able to relocalize. Now, for some people, that fresh strawberry analogy can drive them to some really creative places. So I am going to dig an enormous trench, and over it, I am going to put a garden tunnel. And so I'm going to be below the permafrost line, and I'm going to make sure there's extra light. So I may be able to give you strawberries in January right in Western North Carolina that I grew 3 miles away. So the opportunities for us as humans to do new and exciting things, it's everywhere. When I think that one of the hotbeds of permaculture right now in the United States is Detroit, Michigan, I am astounded. And you go there, and there are people, they are doing permaculture in a way we didn't dream of permaculture 10 years ago. So these ideas, we need to take them into our hearts, and then we need to make them our own, instead of just parroting what somebody else has done. Now, don't get me wrong. If somebody has already invented the wheel in Texas, make your own kind of wheel. Don't feel like you have to totally reinvent it. But what works in Dallas, Texas, is not necessarily going to work in Southern Ohio. And that has to do not only with climate, but it has to do with the people. And that is maybe the biggest impediment to all of this, the building on the ground, is that we have become such a nomadic nation that almost everywhere is a melting pot. But what also happens is that many of the people who are doing that migration are people with great wealth from somewhere else who move into a community and they want to change it immediately. So the language that they use to talk to the people who are already on the ground in that community, they tend to be pretty insulting.
Oh, absolutely.
And so we have to learn how it is we talk to each other again. We have to learn how it is we meet each other where we are, which, yes, I know that's a phrase from the 70s, but we really sit down together and I speak how I speak and you speak how you speak. And instead of immediately being triggered by that and understanding that I come from a more erudite position than you, that I know all of the buzzwords of the day, and so I can negate what you are saying. I don't have to listen to what you're saying because I already know better. And that's where we are right now, not only in social media, but on the ground. So the inner communication, if we can't communicate with each other in a real and significant way, then we are lost. And I'm not talking about lost as a culture. I'm talking about lost as a species. And Lovelock, who did the Gaia hypothesis, one of his most recent books is called The Revenge of Gaia. And his firm belief, and he's an old man now, his firm belief is that by 2050, we will be discrete breeding populations in the last bits of arable land on the planet. That's our species. Is that what we want? Is that what we want? But no, we play Russian roulette all the time and say, maybe that won't happen. I'm just going to keep going on the way I go on. Maybe that won't happen. As California burns, as Florida slips under the waves, that maybe won't happen.
So
yeah,
pay attention, folks, and there'll be more on this. Byron speaks a lot about this at her webpage, the Village Witch, right?
My Village Witch.
My Village Witch, and you certainly are everybody's Village Witch.
I am. I really am the Village Witch in my community. It's not just a name. I do baby blessings, and I do funerals, and I do weddings, and I do house blessings, and when people break land to put in a new garden, they'll go, would you just come by and give it, do your thing. Just come do your thing.
Absolutely.
And I go do my thing.
So we're going to do one last piece, and that is that you in all of this energy, one of the things you empower women is to play with their energy, to work their energy. That to be a witch, you have to practice witchcraft.
I absolutely say that.
So it's the last thought, because a lot of people who are going to see this are going to see you for the first time, maybe. Yeah, absolutely, and they've heard you talk about this sort of idea. And I know one of the first things if they really want to start dealing with the energy of the planet, they have to take control of their own energy.
Yes.
So can you talk a little bit about that?
Happily, yeah. I talk a lot about the uses of energy. And I come from an era in the 70s where women sat together in these empowerment circles. Oh, and there was this beautiful sisterhood, and we talked about power and the uses of power. And then we got to some place where we were like, okay, I'm empowered. Okay, I'm standing in my power. Well, the next step is wielding power, and we don't have such good guideposts for that. But we're learning now what it means to be empowered, either as a woman or as a minority class or just as anyone. How it is we use power in the service of life, in the service of the planet, in service to our community. I also talk a lot about weaving, like weaving a basket, that we weave these containers. And we do that. I don't weave the basket. We all weave the basket. And into that container, we put in hopes and fears and dreams, but we've also put in hard work. Because the way you make sure your community not only survives, but thrives, is that you look beyond what the current models are. And I mean the current, very modern models. We look beyond all of that, and we go deep into thinking about what this particular community needs, which is a unique community. All communities, like all families, are unique, absolutely unique. And some are made up of people who all want to get together and make jam. There's a story I love to tell about a church in Texas, and they did a big community garden. It's an Episcopal church. They did a big community garden on the land of the church in their big old front yard. You know how these major denomination churches have enormous front yards that they have to mow all the time. So they did a community garden. And then the church burned down. And rather than rebuild the church, they started meeting in the community garden. So the pastor would be there, the priest handing out lemonade, handing out hose, handing out shovels, handing out rakes. And when it was time for the sermon, he would stand up from wherever he was, and people would maybe stop and lean on their hoe and listen, or they would just keep working, and he would give the homily. And that to me feels like a model of how pagan peoples, like my people, can work together with people who we perceive as having a very different set of things that are important to them, and how we can begin to weave that together and to make that basket, to create that basket.
Wow. So let's go ahead and so everybody pick up your book, Seasons of a Magical Life.
Yes.
Let's sell it out again.
Yes, Seasons of a Magical Life. Depending on when they see this, it can be pre-ordered until August 1. If you pre-order it from my local indie bookstore, which is malapropscafe.com, then I will sign it for you before it gets shipped out. Because I just go in and they put me in the back room with stacks of books and I just sign them all.
Terrific.
And even after that, if you just want to order a book, if you order it from there, they will ship it to you and I will sign it.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. And that is very powerful. And we'll be talking more with Byron as history moves forward.